Good morning. It is Thursday, January 30th, around 5:30 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar. I'm back with you for another session on scanning. Spelled Sqanning. It's a made-up word. What it means, as designed by me, is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. The incremental release of muscular tension. Squeeze your hands together. 3, 2, 1, release. Releasing muscular tension. Scanning, because we are in effect scanning our body for pockets of muscular tension. Spelled differently just to distinguish it. And what we're trying to do is move ourselves into a state of expansion. Now, this is going to be what I call a practice session as opposed to a core session. A practice session, we just practice the technique. There'll be some descriptions, theoretical things along the way, but a core session is when I will begin at the very beginning how I came to the technique and the particulars of the technique and what they mean. If you're looking for a core session, most of my sessions are core sessions. You can go to the YouTube page for Sqanning, Sqanning, or the Facebook page for Sqanning, Sqanning. Just do a search, and many previous sessions. But I try to throw in a couple pure practice sessions for those of you who are familiar with the technique, or for those of you who don't necessarily need the explanation, just want to jump in. So here we go. We're going to move ourselves from a contracted state to an expanded state. We live on this continuum. We tend to become overly contracted. So all we'll do during this next half hour or so is work to expand through the release of muscular tension. We start with the preliminary phase of scanning, and that's deep breaths followed by stillness and silence, and we extend that as we go. Take a deep breath, sit in absolute stillness and silence for 15 seconds. Now, if you see I'm a little out of breath, I just worked out, which is a very contracted process because you need to be strong in life. But then you need to counter that with expansion. So here we go. Deep breath, 15 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Here we go. 15 seconds. Take a deep breath. You've already begun the process of expansion. You can't contract and expand at the same time. You can't make a fist and release a fist at the same time. Any movement, even the slightest, most incremental, brings you into a more expanded state. So see what that feels like. It feels like just to have incrementally moved the dial. Simply through deep breaths, which are expansive, stillness, which is expansive because it's the opposite of doing, which is a contraction, and silence, because words and thought are a contraction. Silence is emptiness, nothingness. So we've begun the process. Another deep breath, this time followed by 30 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. So you see we're expanding. Deep breath, absolute stillness and silence. And it's important that you send this message to your very being that you are not doing anything. And absolute silence, but of course, continue to breathe. Holding your breath is contracted. Breath is expansive. 30 seconds, deep breath. Here we go. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. If it goes over 30 seconds or you stop under 30 seconds, it really doesn't matter. All you're doing is developing the skill, the technique of stillness and silence. And you may find yourself at war with yourself. You may find this a very strange, uncomfortable place to be. You are at war with your contractive self. You're trying to strengthen your expansive self, which is something we don't do nearly as much as we do contract. And again, I won't go too much into the theory of that. I try to avoid that during these practice sessions. Let's go right into our next deep breath. This one is going to be full 60 seconds. Deep breath, followed by absolute stillness and silence, or 60 seconds. And pay attention to whatever changes you might start to feel as we begin to expand. Even if that means you're very uncomfortable with this process, or you're, as I said, at war with yourself. Pay attention to that. This is the battle that goes on within you 24 hours a day. Do I contract or expand? That's all we are, is a series of contractions and expansions, and we're trying to become more expanded so that we can bring ourselves to center and be balanced. Deep breath, 60 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. Don't move a muscle. It sends a very strong signal to your very being that you are doing nothing. Continue to breathe. 60 seconds. Deep breath. And very important, pay attention. Notice whatever changes you might feel or whatever you experienced in the midst of that process. What you're pulling back the cover on, what you're opening the door to, is a very vision of yourself and how you operate in life. So you can observe yourself through this process. What are your contractive elements and what are your expansive elements? What does it feel like to be contracting? What does it feel like to be expanding? This is the, as I say, continuum you move throughout the day, contracting, expanding. We tend to contract a lot more than we expand. If I might offer a simple analogy, if contraction or expansion are two fields on a farm, and contraction, because you do it 90% of your day, think, do, talk, build, write, create, identify, define. That's contraction. Because you do it so much of the day and you're so good at it, it's like a field that has been planted for many years. Many seeds have been thrown into this field. There are trees, there are bushes, there are huge hedges. There's just a lush field of growth. As opposed to the expansive side, where perhaps you haven't nurtured this side as much, letting go, nothingness, being open, permeable, available. So if this is a field that you want to nurture and grow so that it is of equal strength and power to the contractive field, because you do want balance. You don't want one or the other exclusively. You want both. You might say, well, I'll throw a seed out, but what good will that do? Well, ultimately, to fill this field with lush vegetation and growth, to make it as powerful as your contractive side, you need many, many seeds. If you were planting a wheat field, you would throw out many, many wheat seeds. So the definition of scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension, the core being release, but the nearly as important word is incremental. One seed begins the process. 2 seeds, 3, 20, 100, 4,000, 10,000. As you continue to seed this field with small seeds, eventually it will grow into a very lush garden. And as I said, full of vegetation to rival that of the contractive field. And I emphasize that because in this process, you're going to be making very small changes. And I want to encourage you to celebrate and honor those small incremental changes, because every one of them matters. Every seed you plant in this expansive field will grow and add. So if you say to yourself in the midst of this process, I don't feel anything different. Really? Well, maybe a little something good. That slight change has tremendous validity in the scanning process, even the most incremental of changes, because again, you can't contract and expand at the same time. Any movement towards expansion is valid. So keep that in your mind when you're practicing, that this isn't a competition to see how far you can get in every session. It's a process of training yourself to recognize what it feels like to expand and begin to pepper your life with moments of expansion. Perhaps at first you'll only do it 5 times, 5 seats, maybe the next day 10. Soon it becomes a part of your life and you're doing as many moments of expansion as you are as contraction, and then you are centered or balanced. Okay, let's continue. We've finished the preliminary phase of scanning, deep breath, stillness, and silence. That has in effect warmed us up. It's moved us into a more expanded state. And again, pay attention. How do I feel different? Do I feel more relaxed? Do I feel more quiet? Do I feel more settled in my chair? Have I forgotten why I'm here? Hanging on to ideas and thoughts and memories and plans is a contractive process. As you start to put yourself to sea, to drift openly, without obligation, without definition, you will begin to perhaps forget your name, your purpose. It's a place of emptiness, nothingness, the expanded state. You can't live there. You must function in this world. You must go to work, make money, tell people who you are and what you do. But you also want to find moments to go to an empty place. So look for signs that you've perhaps begun to let go. And celebrate that. So now we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of scanning, which is, as I said at the very beginning, the incremental release of muscular tension. Incremental. From this, squeeze your hands together, to this. That much. Just that much. Pay attention to what that feels like. You will become a connoisseur of muscular release. Even the smallest amount matters. Celebrate it. We start with the first of 8 muscular zones. I've divided my body into 8 muscular zones. I can approach it in small defined areas, which is easier than trying to release muscular tension in the entire body. Divide your body however you like. This is my way. Use it as a guide, but proceed to customize this technique to yourself. Every body, every being is unique. I'm doing what works for me. If any part of this works for you, fantastic, use it. But if you find there are other ways that work more appropriately for you, follow that path. Zone 1 is the face. On my count, you're going to release however much muscular tension you can release in the muscles of your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. I always say look in the mirror because you can actually see the change. 3, 2, 1, and release. It's like when you've ever been to a show where there was a hypnotist and they say, on my count, you're going to fall deep asleep. They go 3, 2, 1, and they just start out. So what you're doing is flipping the switch, turning off the power to those muscles. It takes energy to hold muscles in a position. You hold your tension throughout the day. Be surprised how much you just keep it together. So we're turning the switch, turning the power off to those muscles, letting them go, incrementally releasing muscular tension. If at first this feels unfamiliar or strange, you don't know how to do it, always start with this. 3, 2, 1, and release. That's all you're doing, releasing muscular tension. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. Now I'm going to proceed through the rest of these zones fairly quickly, just for instructional purposes, but in your own time, take as much time as you can afford. And I would suggest that in my own sessions, many times, the majority of my session will be spent trying to get past that first step. And I'll be very frustrated and I won't feel any changes and I'll keep trying to release, but I'll still feel tense. I'll still be thinking. The discipline of scanning is staying with it. Try to stay with it as long as you can until at some point, someday, you'll feel this total release of muscular tension. And you go, where did that come from? Well, you had a lot of resistance built up, a lot of contractive energy. So it's very difficult to change that habit, to change that grasp that your muscles have on you. Be persistent. The thing about scanning is once you've experienced complete expansion, the feeling of nothingness, emptiness, clarity, permeability, availability, joy, you'll go, ah. And you're going to want to go back to that. I've been doing this for many, many years. I love going back to that state. That doesn't mean it's easy. It's still a challenge, especially when I've wound up and highly contracted from my day. Persistence, discipline, stay with it, put in as much time as you can. Zone 2, top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. And as you're going through the muscles, as the bodies, if you go, I don't know how to do that, don't worry about it. Just try to imagine releasing 1/10% of the muscular tension in that area. The count is feeling and focusing on that area. The snap is releasing tension. That's scanning. And you will get better and better at it as you practice. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. How did that feel? Did you feel it? The face again, 3, 2, 1, and the top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. So we've moved the dial. Deep breath. As you begin to expand your body, your diaphragm, which has been keeping it together and holding your breath, holding, contracting, will begin to feel like it's safe to breathe. You're probably oxygen depleted. Most of us tend to not breathe as much as our body would like us to. So as you begin to release tension, let go of this guard you have, this holding, this muscular defense system, your body will say, oh, it's okay to breathe now. And you will feel the impulse to take a breath. Take that breath. Breaths are fundamentally expansive. If you learn nothing else from these sessions, take away that you should try to breathe more. Deep breath. Zone 3, the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And pat yourself on the back. Say, yeah, I felt that. Back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. I sent the command, the instruction to that area of my musculature, and I was able to, 3, 2, 1, let go of some tension there. Along with the release of muscular tension comes perhaps a throbbing, a tingling, a warmth as your blood begins to circulate more freely. Your body will thank you. You're much more functional, you're much more capable in a relaxed state. Your best athletes, dancers, writers, singers, anyone who uses their body in their work will find that they perform much more effectively when they are in an expanded state, a relaxed state, because you are more sensitive to and available to your circumstances. Zone 4 is the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. We're going to do all 4. The face, 3, 2, 1, and the top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. So there we go. Halfway through. Those are the 4 zones. You'll see there's a lot of concentration in this area because we tend to think a lot. This is a highly contracted area. Our thoughts, our neck, our voice, we carry a lot of tension in this area as we keep it together, defend ourselves in the world. So this is why I focus on this area. It's a great place to start also because, as I said, you can observe it, and we tend to be more in touch with the muscles of the face because we use it all the time. Other areas you go, how do I relax my knee, for example? Well, explore. Zone 5 is the shoulders, also very important. On my count, let the shoulders drop incrementally. Just the important thing is that you feel it and that you say, I felt that. The change. You felt the change. You felt the movement from this to this, to this, to this. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, let them drop and release. And again, the shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. Always take deep breaths. So we've been going about 20 minutes now, and I note that just to say, take a second, take many moments within this process to say to yourself, how do I feel? What's different about how I feel now as opposed to how I felt 20 minutes ago? Any shift is important, valid, and worthy. Brings you into a deeper state of expansion, trains you to become more familiar with the process as you become more and more proficient at this technique. I keep a journal. You might. A journal of how many hours I spend scanning, just so that I can say, okay, I put in some time today. I try to put in an hour a day. If I can, I do 2 in the morning and at night. Because I recognize after practicing for many years that the more time I spend practicing this, the better I get at it. And I really want to get better as my life's goal, because I recognize that when I've been in an expanded state, I'm so much happier, so much calmer, so much clearer about the decisions and steps I have to take in my life, so much more available to people who need me to assist them or work for them, so much more efficient in the use of my body, my mind, my voice, my spirit. It's of tremendous value moving into an expanded state. So I'm obsessed with it. But keeping a journal motivates you to push through those times when you feel frustrated. I'm not getting anywhere. It's not working. And believe me, I feel that at least 5 times a day. Why am I so contracted? Well, time to expand. Why am I having such a hard time expanding? Well, it's decades of habit, contractive habits you've built up, but you will get better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the shoulders. Zone 6 is the torso. It's a big area, big muscular zone, but we're warmed up so we can do it. The chest, the stomach, the back, the waist. On my count, just release this whole middle section of your body. 3, 2, 1, and release. Just feel that sagging sensation, that sinking. That sensation that I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to think anything. I can just exist. Experience my body. Forget my definitions, my political positions, my religious positions, my goals, my past, my future. Just let them all go and just be, to use the cliche, in the moment. Again, zone 6, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. I'd like to remind you and myself that these sessions are instructional by nature. There's a lot of talking, which is contracted, and we move very quickly. On your own, when you're practicing on your own, take as much time as you can afford to take. The whole idea is to slow down, to say less, to think less, to do less, to bring yourself to a place where you're not required to be or do anything. You just exist. So keep that in mind, as there's a lot of words coming at you, a lot of instructions, that this is just for instructional purposes. On your own, make it a moment of stillness and silence and quiet, and go to a place of nothingness. Zone 7, the pelvic region, the entire pelvic region. On my count, just release, if you can, whatever holding or clenching you feel in that area. 3, 2, 1, and release. 3, 2, 1, and release. This area in particular may be a sensitive area because it involves the areas of sexuality and waste elimination, as I always say. These are possibly sources of embarrassment, excitement, feelings, fear, desire, frustration. There's a lot of emotion in the pelvic region. So you may find that you are holding there. Sometimes we're frightened by the idea of letting go of control in certain areas of our musculature, our neck, our head, our back, whatever. We may be very sensitive in that area. Those are the areas to focus on. That's where you have the most contraction. So perhaps the pelvic region is an area, perhaps your back, as I said, your neck. Maybe you're jumpy when people touch you because you're holding so much tension. Focus on those areas. Go to the area of greatest struggle. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. If you are frightened or uncomfortable with the idea of muscular release, if it makes you feel like you're dropping your defenses, that's an excellent sign. We tend to be much more overly contracted than we need to be to exist on this planet. We carry around a great deal of tension. We wear a suit of armor, if you will, in the desire to protect ourselves, and many times it's completely unnecessary. When in fact there are moments when you could be sitting and doing nothing with emptiness and stillness and just benefit from that, the calm that comes from that. So this is the struggle habit. Zone 8 is down the knees, across, down the legs, and into the all-important feet, the final zone. Focus on your feet, and then on my count, release however much muscular tension you can release in the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. And even if that release just means, oh, I felt my feet. Feeling is what comes with expansion. You're allowing feelings which are held to be released. You will find in this process that you may feel more than you're used to. And not just emotional feelings, but physical sensations. When you're contracted, you're cut off from your feelings. This is why we feel so unhappy when we're overly contracted, and why we need to have a drink or smoke a joint or take a vacation, because we need to get back in touch with ourselves. Again, another cliche, but these all come from a truth. We need to feel ourselves, because what happens when you don't feel yourself? You feel dead. And it's frightening and it's lonely. As you begin to come back into an expanded place, a place of feeling, you feel like, I'm alive, I exist, I'm here, I matter. I have sensations. It's thrilling to be alive. I'm comforted by the fact that I am not perishing, I'm not disappearing, I'm not turning into nothing, I'm actually a full human being. It's very fulfilling, very enriching. So sensations are also what come with expansion, and allow for those. Again, this is a study. Study what happens as you begin to expand. Become a connoisseur of expansion, what it feels like. So that you are able to bring yourself into that place whenever you want, whenever you need. You don't have to reach for what I call external sources of expansion, chemical expansions, alcohol, drugs. You don't need to drive an hour to the masseuse, although that's fine, that's great. But sometimes you haven't got the time, or sometimes you feel like incapable because you need so many external things to make you feel better. With scanning, you have a tool in your toolkit that allows you to change your very state of being. And it's very empowering. You don't feel so dependent on external things to make you feel good about yourself. You have this tool, and so you feel self-sufficient, you feel capable, you feel much more of a mastery of your life. You don't feel like you're being buffeted or thrown around by circumstance. You go, I always have me. Whatever happens, I always have me. I know what it feels like. I know what just being me feels like. I've been there. I've scanned. I've taken myself to an expanded place. Whatever happens, I have me. So you feel less frightened. So that's a half an hour. I tried to make this a practice session, which is just technique. Of course, I can't help myself because I love the concepts of scanning. I can't help but talk about them during the process. I hope they helped. Ultimately, when you're doing your own practice time, you want to be still and silent. Concentrate on the muscular release. Words are a contraction, so in a way I'm at war with myself, but these are sessions which have a purpose, and that is to share these ideas so that you can experiment with them yourself and hopefully benefit from them. So I'll just give you the definition again. Sqanning, S-Q-A-N-N-I-N-G, a made-up word, but what it references is the technique which I've developed, which uses the incremental release of muscular tension. Incremental release of muscular tension. Squeeze your hands together from this to this. Incremental. To achieve a deep state, hopefully, of physical, emotional, and mental calm and peace, and hopefully joy. That's it. Have yourself a great day. We'll see you next time. Take care, and bye-bye.